My name is Jason. This is my van, Sasquash. I got this van a couple years ago as just a two-wheel drive beater, and I had a little sticker of a Sasquatch on it, and I had big dreams for it, so I felt like the name was appropriate for what my vision was. Over the course of the last 5 years, I've just been, really working towards, minimizing down, and for the past 3 years, I've been living out of some form of vehicle. Before the van, I lived in a rooftop tent and then moved into a little teardrop trailer. And then once I kind of got the van to a point, we got here. All right, so this is kind of my basic kitchen area. It's really a simple setup. I've got a little bit of a refrigerator right here that's on a slide that I can get in and out, and that makes just getting to my food easier, especially if I'm cooking outside. I can pull the refrigerator out towards me so I don't have to get into the van. My inside cooking is I just got a little 2-burner stove here, and this was almost a little bit of an afterthought when I was building the van. My original cabinet from my previous build didn't work out the way I wanted in here, so I kind of threw this together, and it was supposed to be temporary, but in the end it just kind of stayed. So I have a little table here that pops up and down, and this closes my dry area. Where I got dry foods, canned foods, and stuff like that. But then, like I said, it comes up and then it gives me a little prep area. The downside to this setup is trying to get the stuff down here. This then becomes in the way. It's not so bad if I'm just grabbing stuff out when I'm standing outside, but cooking inside, it can be cumbersome to get to the items down there. But, for the most part, it works pretty easily for the simple meals that I typically cook. So one of the other things when I'm cooking, you get steam and, oils and stuff like that to come up. So I try to keep that clear out of the van, try to keep some airflow. So I've got a max air fan up here, and I can control it with my controller, and I can just kind of click it on. That helps a lot, in trying to just keeping the windows from fogging up, keeping the condensation under control, and keeping hopefully a little bit of the smells of cooking out of the van. All right, so this is my bed. Right now it's kind of shoved up in what I call couch mode. It just kind of allows me to, when I want to chill at night and kind of just get back, chill. If I have a drink or anything, I can flip this up, and got a little stand so I can put anything there. But this is also kind of where I keep my clothes and different things. I've got just another little drawer here where it's kind of as much as anything, just a little junk drawer where I keep things. I've got all the electronics back here that kind of power the van as far as my house battery system. And then I got just a little bookshelf, books I'm reading, magazines, anything that's of interest, like if I'm just, not wanting to take in any social media or movies. And then, for me, the van and the feel of the van, I really wanted to have that cabin in the woods feel. So I had this old axe. I used to use it quite a bit. I don't use it much anymore. So I just kind of mounted it up here with a couple turkey feathers. Just kind of gives it that old woodsman's cabin feel, which I really like. We got the controls for my Propex heater. That's how I kind of keep the van warm. And then over here, I just store my desk. This is the desk I use for editing my own content and any other work I have. So I was working IT and, spending a lot of time indoors, stuck behind the office. And somewhere around 35, I got a renewed interest in doing more stuff outdoors again, and started, down the research trail on YouTube, looking at other channels, seeing what they're doing, seeing how they're accomplishing things that I wanted to do, which eventually led me into starting my own channel. And I went for a couple years just, making some videos, a lot of bushcraft type stuff. And it led me into wanting to learn to hunt a little bit and reading some different books from different authors on hunting. And then those authors kind of recommended books, and that's what led me into, reading the book about Daniel Boone and, reading the stories about the Native Americans and the way they viewed the Westerners coming over, the Europeans coming over, and how they were doing things. And it really, again, started to make me question my own life and how I was living it, feeling very tied to my property, working 8 hours a day, 8+ hours a day, and then basically coming back and working every free moment on keeping the property up, taking care of the animals, taking care of the livestock. And it just made me want to switch. I was enjoying so much my time in nature. I just found myself wanting to spend more and more time out in nature. And then, life kind of goes as it does. I was married at the time. Me and my wife decided to separate. It was just a difference in, lifestyles. She wanted the house, the picket fence, and I found myself more and more wanting the freedom and the ability to live a little more of the gypsy lifestyle and just being out and about. So I ended up with our 2 elderly dogs in the divorce, which I was very happy about, and I really enjoyed taking them on my adventures and taking them places with me. One of them is no longer with me, unfortunately. He is with me in spirit and in the van here. And the other one is actually with my girlfriend at the moment, but travels with me most of the time. So I've got this Jackery. This is actually supplemental power. Anytime I want power outside of the van, I've got a little shower system on the outside of the van. Sometimes I'll take a little DC pump down to the river, fill up a jug, bring it back up. So anytime, or if I want to work outside, like it's a hot day and I want to just go sit under a shade tree, I can take the Jackery out and do that. I have a fully built-in battery system with Red Arc and Battleborn batteries that functions, all my lighting, the Max Air fan, the refrigerator, heating system, and all that. But it's just really nice to have that portable solution for anything that I want to do, exterior of the van. I have a 200 watt hour solar panel on the van that's fixed, and then I also have a Red Arc solar blanket that I can plug into the back of the van. So if I'm not positioned great for the one fixed solar panel, I can put the other 200 watts Red Arc panel out anywhere I need it to be to kind of get the best sun. I've got 200 amp hours of Battleborn batteries, so basically 2 100 amp batteries, and that pretty much powers me pretty well with the way everything's set up. I can charge through the alternator. I've got a high output alternator, and that makes sure I have plenty of power for the Red Arc to be able to charge my batteries. I also have a shore power output if I'm anywhere where I can take advantage of shore power. This is where my fresh water system is. I fill in here, and then I've just got a water tap here. I don't have a sink. I didn't really want to take up space with a sink and the plumbing that goes with it. So I pretty much just use this for, filling water or filling my bush pot full of water. I do keep a hose down in here that I can screw right onto this, and so I can stand out here and wash dishes or anything like that if I want to. But for the most part, I just kind of use it for filling up water. And then I just got a couple cubbies down here. This one's kind of a junk drawer cubby. I keep my little nozzle for filling up here and a few other items. This is my tripod and a couple little tools, but I kind of keep all my tripods and everything in this cubby, and that works pretty well. The one thing I would say if I was to do this over again is I hate having the fill inside. I would change this and go ahead and screw in and put a fill on the outside. These are my two obviously side doors. On this side door I have a little table that flips up and down. I pretty much only use this table when I'm standing outside and want to cook outside. It works well. I keep a few little items here, nothing really specific, and then I've got a knife that I use for cutting up stuff here on the cutting board. I can just kind of grab that, and I use it for other things like making fires and that kind of things too. This cabinet here, this is typically where I house my coffee and an extra roll of paper towels. I do have a paper towel roll here where I use, but this is where I kind of keep an extra on. Up here, I've got vitamins and some other things. I got cups, got a little spice rack here. All my utensils that I use, pretty minimal what I got. Spatula, wood spatula, tongs, a couple spoons, and a lighter. Right over here. So this is nice because I can shut the door, and when I'm cooking inside, all this stuff is right here. But when I'm outside cooking, it's all right here and easy for me to access. So I started a YouTube channel 8 years ago. I started it just for fun, just I enjoyed the community, the people I was getting to meet across online. I wanted to get involved, so I started just making some videos. At the time, in 2003, YouTube videos were pretty rough. We didn't have great equipment that we have now that's available. And I wanted to make something that you almost felt like you were watching something on TV. And so I really started to learn as much as I could about cameras, filming techniques. I definitely derived a lot of influence from early people like Les Stroud, who was creating content by himself out in the wilderness. I really attributed a lot of my early content and the way I did that to his style. But then I came across, other creators like Donnie Vincent, who created some amazing hunting videos that had a huge influence on my life and on my filmmaking techniques. And then other YouTube creators like Peter McKinnon, his technique for showing, doing B-roll and everything really had an influence on how I wanted to portray the outdoors. And in my videos, I knew, like, at the time, there was a lot of, in the early videos, there was a lot of survival videos kind of coming out in the genres that I was kind of watching, and everybody kind of portrayed the outdoors as this scary place. Like there was, like if you just didn't have the skills or the know-how, you had no business being out there and you were gonna die. And I decided early on I didn't want to portray the outdoors that way. It was a great place for me, a place of peace, a place to just unwind and kind of clear my head, and it made me feel very comfortable and at peace, and I wanted other people to see the outdoors that way. So that's how I decided to run with my channel, is I wanted to portray the outdoors as a great place to kind of just unwind and let the outside world go for a little bit, And so when I create a video, I want people to sit and watch it and have an experience, and I want them to have that experience that that relaxes them, that makes them feel at peace, and encourages them to also want to come out and experience this. But experience it in a very, respectful way, and respect the fact that we do have in the United States all this public land to be able to do this on. Back bumper, yeah, I've got my e-bike back here. I've got the full-size spare for the van, a 10-gallon tank behind the e-bike. I've got my jack. They're both on swing out, so actually the e-bike and everything will swing out and away, and then the spare tire will swing out and away, and then I can get to my back doors and get to that drawer I talked about earlier. Up on the rack up here, I've got a light bar. It's connected right to my reverse lever, so as soon as I go in reverse, it flips on so I can see behind the van. I've got an antenna that is for my high boost, so that way I can hopefully get better signal inside the van when I'm in remote areas. Up and over here, I have my shovel and axe. I can climb up on my ladder and get those, various uses for those things. Over here on this side, I also have my shower system, a little shower room that pops out. I've got a couple of ports on the van where I've got a heat exchanger, and I can plug cold water into the van when the van's running and pump water through that side, and then it goes through a heat exchanger that runs off my coolant system of the van and gives me hot water. I've also got my recovery boards on top, and then a tule rack that is mainly empty, and I put stuff in it that I don't usually use on a regular basis, like my kayak, foldable kayak, or other like backpacking gear and stuff like that for specific trips. So one of the things that I did with the van is I coated the van completely in Line-X. It's very durable. It helped, one, get rid of the ugly paint job that was on the van when I got it, but it looks good, and it handles me going off trail, because there's nothing that a 4x4 van doesn't rub against in the brush, and it just does not scratch, and so it just stays looking good, and I'm really happy with that. It does add probably about 100 pounds if you're doing a full van, but to me it was well worth it. On the ladder is one of my little things that I actually like. This is for my chainsaw. I carry my chainsaw up here normally, but like if I'm off trail and I run into a tree down, I can get my chainsaw down, get that tree out of the way, and then I can just holster it right here while I go down the trail in case I run into another tree down. I don't have to keep going up and down. It'll be right here and ready for me to go. So not only do I live in this van, but I mean, one of my things I like to do is get in remote country, overland, just explore the public land that we have in the West. So I have a lot of gear set up here in the cockpit so that way for mapping and navigating, so that when I'm in remote places, I know and keep track of where I'm at and stay in communications with people. All right, so up here, I had a buddy of mine who's an electrician. He made this bar for me that kind of forfeits over the dash, and it gives me a lot of ways to connect accessories, especially like my iPad here. I have my phone, and then since I obviously do filming on my own for my channel, I got ways of mounting cameras and then of course drink mounts. Like I said, I got my iPad, I have my navigation software, and this is how I kind of keep track of where I am, any type of routing, creating waypoints, all of that. Of course, you know, access to my phone. I listen to, you know, stream music most of the time, so I'll kind of do that and I can play that through the stereo. But then I also have my emergency communications, you know, so when I'm in remote areas, I can, you know, text my girlfriend and anybody else I need to. If I found myself in trouble, I could text emergency services. So yeah, it's pretty well set up. It's all easy for me to access while I'm driving, and I don't have to, you know, not really hard for me to kind of take my eyes off the road for a minute to see what's going on. So it works out really well. So the app I use on my iPad is Gaia, mostly for my off-track navigation. You know, if I'm just kind of going from city to city and trying to find places, I just use Google Maps. But backcountry stuff, I pretty much solely use Gaia GPS. I have, you know, all of, you know, Oregon, which is my home state, pretty much downloaded. But then when I'm in different areas, like now I'm in Arizona, I can put any routes and navigation. And things that I like about it is, you know, I can see the same stuff on my phone, and I can use my laptop and stuff like that. When I'm trying to scout new areas, I can look at my laptop, kind of figure things out. Everything goes up to the cloud, immediately gets pushed out to my phone and my tablet. So having the two dogs with me full time, I was previously on the channel doing a lot of backpacking kind of stuff and, you know, hiking in. But the two older dogs, it just wasn't going to be a possibility. So I started looking into truck camping, because at the time I had no clue or idea of what overlanding was. But I started to kind of venture down that research road of truck camping, which did lead me to overlanding. And I saw that was the perfect opportunity for me, because I could still get into remote areas, but I could take Daisy and Wheeler with me, which was amazing. And so I started kind of outfitting my old truck that I had, which, you know, I always recommend to people, you know, start with what you got. And that's what I had, was an old Ford F-250. And we started off with a few different setups. I mean, tents on the ground. We eventually went to a rooftop tent. When I decided to finally just go full-time overland, I had a little overland trailer with a rooftop tent, and I lived in that for a short period. And then quickly got a drifter little, what I call a square back trailer, or a lot of people call them teardrop trailers, but it was kind of the more square shaped one. And that was a lot nicer, because then I was in something with hard sides, because anybody who's spent any amount of time in a tent in a windstorm can appreciate hard sides. But I knew that my dream was always a van. When I first started my research, I had seen a sportsmobile, and I was like, that's it, that's what I want. And I think every iteration of what I did before that was just me not doing what I knew I wanted to do in the first place, which was get a van. and eventually, through a set of circumstances where I wasn't even looking for a van for myself, I was actually looking for a van for a friend, helping them like search out a van. I found Sasquash, which was just this junker van on Craigslist. It was two-wheel drive, had a funky paint job. It had some engine problems, and I tried to convince my friend that they should get this van, and they just weren't having it. And I don't know, something just attached me to it. Like, I couldn't let it go. I went and looked at it and drove it, and then I backed out again. Decided not to do it. That I wasn't what I should do. And then it stayed on Craigslist 2 weeks, and I saw it again, and so I called the guy up, made him an offer, and brought it home. And I've been, just busily, over the last couple years, just kind of working things through. Got 4x4 conversion done to it by AJ's 4x4 vans. Did some modifications to that conversion over time. Went through several iterations of the interior, a very rough interior. And then I met Megan, which is my girlfriend, who also lives in a 4x4 van, and she was in a horrible wreck. And I found myself for a short period needing her to be able to live in my van with me, which made me rethink everything inside here. And because my old iterations really only had room for me and my 2 dogs. And so I had to figure out something that worked to where I knew that no matter what, if something happened, that I had room for 2 of us. So that's where this particular build kind of came into place. So anyways, if you guys find anything interesting, I do make videos on YouTube. It's Primal Outdoors on YouTube, Primal_Outdoors on Instagram. And I'll see you guys again outside.